The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Welcome in on this Monday evening. It's beautiful summertime. Isn't it great to have you? And Chris Maxwell from the American Trucking Association is here to talk to us about the litigation. Actually, the Rhode Island Truckers Association. It's, you know, they're in the same neighborhood, right? The American Trucking Association is actually suing the state of Rhode Island over the truck tolls that are part of the Roadworks program. We've only had about 127 shows on this on both the radio and television side, but I haven't had a chance to have Chris in here since the litigation was actually filed during one of my vacation weeks. So I'm glad to update you on that coming up momentarily. So let's dig into a couple things that are happening. In the meantime, the number one story here in the state is the strike that is about to ensue. Well, as you're watching the show, it has, I'm sure, from the nurses. We taped this program in the early afternoon, so I'm looking at the clock, and we're about an hour away from the nurses walking out of the hospital. Here's the latest from Eyewitness News.
I feel very devalued, and I can't deliver the type of nursing care or be the nurse that I want to be because I'm too busy doing other people's jobs.
But hospital leadership has said the negotiation talks have been largely focused on money.
The topic of on-the-job resources and staffing levels were never brought to the table during this negotiation process.
Lifespan has brought in temporary nurses and other employees to work during the stoppage, although due to scheduling and part-timers, it will not be a one-for-one replacement. In part of a statement released Sunday, a hospital spokesperson wrote, "As the state's only Level 1 trauma center, our doors remain open as always to trauma patients and those in need of critical services that only Rhode Island Hospital can provide." The statement goes on to explain changes in place due to the impending strike. The emergency department is on diversion. The State Department of Health has told EMS providers to bring stroke patients to the closest primary stroke centers at other hospitals, and all elective services and non-urgent diagnostic testing has been rescheduled for the duration of the work stoppage.
You know, this just can't happen. This just can't happen. I don't know. I actually had a conversation with Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee a half an hour ago, my time, taping tomorrow night's show because we had a production schedule change. And he was wondering out loud whether or not there ought to be some legislation that addresses this. Whether that's specifically saying that nurses, like police officers, cannot strike, I don't know. But I'm hesitant to jump on the nurses in this situation. I mean, the last time that they threatened strike, it was a part of this forced overtime thing, which I think is a potential patient, you know, all of us, we don't want to live in that world where nurses are exhausted. And to this day, I know veteran nurses and I know young nurses, all of whom are forced into 10, 12, 14, 18-hour consecutive work schedules. And I just don't see what the smarts are about that. Lifespan has got to be much more publicly communicative as well. They do, the collective group, when we're not in union turmoil, does God's work over there. But this is the only Level 1 trauma facility we have in this state, and all this diversion nonsense shouldn't be necessary. They ought to be making this thing happen. And the idea that they could only contract for 4 days with replacement workers, so the 30-day strike from the nurses is now a forced 4-day bunk. The Department of Health is going to take care of this situation and make sure, yeah. Okay, we'll see. We'll stay in touch with this on the radio and on the television here all week long. In the meantime, Donald Trump, extraordinary this weekend. You know, all that's going on, this idea with Iran and capital letters, you know, tweeting at them, I just don't understand it. Here's CBS.
President Trump didn't mince words when he tweeted to Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. He wrote in all caps, "Never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before." Earlier Sunday, Rouhani threatened Mr. Trump, saying, "Don't play with the lion's tail. This would only lead to regret," and added that peace with Iran is the mother of all peace, and war with Iran is the mother of all wars. President Trump fired back. "We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. be cautious.
Does he run the risk of inciting a war with Iran?
Look, the president's responding to Iran, and he's not going to allow them to continue to make threats against America. If anybody is inciting anything, look no further than to Iran.
President Trump has taken a hard line with Iran since taking office and was highly critical of the deal the Obama administration negotiated to stop Iran's nuclear weapons program. President Trump pulled America out of the Iran nuclear deal back in May, and the U.S. will reimpose oil and banking sanctions against Iran next month. Sunday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called on Iranians to stand up to their own government.
The level of corruption and wealth among Iranian leaders shows that Iran is run by something that resembles the mafia more than a government.
Iran responded to Pompeo's remarks, saying the U.S. is trying to interfere in state matters.
You know, on this capital letter tweet thing, you know what the art of war says, in part? When you're strong, act weak. When you're weak, act strong. Capital letters screaming like, I oughta, why I oughta, why I oughta. It's like a drunk at the bar screaming over somebody's shoulder about the girl that he's not supposed to be talking to, and, you know, his buddies are pulling him out, and he's, you know, he's like this, you know. America is not the drunk at the bar, you know, reaching over, thanking God that his buddies are pulling him out, otherwise he'd get kicked in, right? Come on. I don't know what you're going to do about it. I don't know what this is. I'm sorry. Sometimes it feels like it's just you know, a Donald Trump, the Alcoholics Anonymous type deal with it coping group. Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm coping with it too, just like you are. All right. In the meantime, headlines, intrigue, local politics. Patricia Morgan, the state representative, the minority leader, and gubernatorial candidate, she broke the code, man. She broke the code. I'm not talking about the nuclear code. I'm talking about the, you know, the leadership whispered something in her ear about busting the governor's chops. Please take on the governor on a couple of these issues, and she outed them. She went to the press and she's talking about how she takes no requests from the House. House Speaker doesn't want the governor reelected, so the Democrats aren't getting along. That's no secret in the political circle world out there, but she broke the code. She went rogue. She sold out the chief of staff. It's like, I don't know what she's talking about. Of course you don't know what she's talking about. She broke the code. Hey, listen, it's her risk. She'll never have a confidential conversation with anybody in government again. She probably thinks, what the heck, kamikaze time. Her poll numbers are not very good. She's not running for re-election on a state rep basis. And why not pull out all the stops to try to make some hay in the governor's race? But breaking the code, ooh. All right, let's go to the next headline here. And just, let's talk about this.
Yes, sir.
This. Chris Maxwell. You've broken a couple of codes in your life, actually.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you have.
Yes, I have.
You're a code breaker.
Yeah, I'm not part of the sworn.
But you know what I'm talking about. She broke the code a little bit.
Yeah, she broke the code.
She broke the code.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see whether that hurts her or not, or it could help her.
There's a few codes I might break.
Yeah. Well,
still holding on
let's
to.
put it this way: you have spoken out of school. You have broken orthodoxy in the last couple of years in terms of negotiating and/or complaining about the state's truck toll program.
Yep.
I don't think any of it has been out of bounds. I think it has been gutsy. I think it's been, you know, edgy, but, you know, I think you've learned in your time an incredible amount of advocacy.
Yeah.
And I think you've matured in it too. I mean, you learned. I mean, when you first got into this gig, you were right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember my chairman calling me up that day when we finally decided to come out and say we're against this. We're coming out against truck tolls. And he called me up and said we're at war, and we've been at war ever since. The codes. What I learned is that the folks you're paying a lot of money for to advocate for you down in the toilet bowl, as I like to call it, working as much for the leadership to keep him happy as to keep you happy.
You're talking about the State House.
The State House.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing is that they want to muffle your voice. They want to tailor your advocacy, your message They want to basically control you to serve the purposes of those in power, not really get to the end game that you need to establish. And that's why it's been kind of liberating to just shed everyone and everybody and you know, team up with our our friend Mr. Collins, and we've gone a little bit rogue at times. And
when we come back, though, I don't think there's any rogue in explaining what the issues are, and I understand exactly why the truckers are suing, and you know, it's been a kind of a chess match. We'll talk about it starting next when we come back. Stay with us. So to remind you what the issues are, here's an Eyewitness News summary on the litigation. We almost had a summary on the litigation. You want to try it again? Give it another shot?
The fight is on over Rhode Island's truck tolls. The state started collecting from large tractor trailers last month, and now the national trade group American Trucking Associations is suing in federal court.
The lawsuit details with great clarity how Governor Raimondo's Roadworks truck-only tolling scheme is a blatant violation of multiple constitutional provisions designed specifically to protect interstate commerce.
The lawsuit claims the tolls violate what's called the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution, in part because only large trucks class 8 and above have to pay the tolls. Other vehicles pay nothing. Chris Maxwell with the Rhode Island Trucking Association says it also puts a burden on out-of-state trucks just passing through.
You can't take the free interstate and pervert it and manipulate it for your own personal gain or your state's gain.
Only 2 tolls are currently operating in southern Rhode Island, but 12 more are planned. The revenue will make up 10% of the funding for the Roadworks program to fix roads and bridges. And RIDOT Director Peter Alviti has long argued tractor trailers have done the most damage to that infrastructure. RIDOT sent a statement in response to the lawsuit saying, "This is a lawsuit we expected. We are prepared to defend the tractor-trailer truck-only tolling program and have been prepared to do so for 3 years. We are confident that we will prevail."
They also think they're the only ones who are lawyers.
Apparently so, and I question whether they or their lawyers have even read the suit, because their messaging does not address what's in the suit. There's really 2 arguments here. You've designed, by admission, through the messaging from DOT, the governor, and the speaker, that we are actually going after the bad guys that are coming through here and protecting our own. And the protection comes in the form of a $40 per day cap. So a $40 per day cap means that the truck traveling 46 miles north and 46 miles south through the state, New York to Boston, is going to pay $20 up and $20 back for 92 miles of use. Yet a truck that is intrastate running around the state, a tractor trailer at this point, is going to pay $40 for unbridled use, which could amount to hundreds of dollars. That basically constitutes an unfair playing field, protecting the local guys and really a disproportionate burden on the guys going through. That's the first part.
Okay, well, that's when we have a full complement of gantries.
That's correct.
Right now, it's $3.50 each.
$3.75.
There's only 2 gantries in South County right now. Yep. And yesterday, with Mike Collins from the American Truck Association and M&D Trucking here, he's the other partner in crime, I say that with love, was here last week on the TV side, and then on the radio I was on for 40 minutes trying to understand what he was saying about the release that the DOT put out last week, which was that they expected somewhere in the neighborhood of 17,000 truck toll in the first month of June, and got 18,000 plus, so that they were ahead of the game. It doesn't work out. The numbers are inflated. Give me a layman. I understand the math now. Give me a layman's understanding
that
of this.
none of this messaging matters. Post June 11th, we've had commercials, hundreds of thousands of TV and radio commercials espousing the benefits of truck-only tolls. And then we now have the numbers. It's a solvent, great system. We have the numbers to prove it. And then the next message is last week on PRO, the director coming out saying, if we don't have tolls, we're going to have to let the bridges stay unsafe. This is all, in my estimation, teeing up for what we believe is coming, which is car tolls, because I believe that they're like Pavlov's dogs. I think they're conditioning us.
We'll address that part of it, but the numbers,
where the numbers are
inflated.
significant. The numbers are significant, regardless of their benchmark revenues and the numbers. They're insignificant to the spirit of and the claim in the suit. But as far as Mike's numbers goes, why those matter is very simple. Since day one, they've bloated their truck counts. 11,000 on the highway, 7,000 here. And they've continually tried to adjust and back in numbers to justify their revenue, and that the plan is solvent. The significance of Mike's truck counts that mirrors not only IFTA mileage and ATRI, American Transportation Research Institute's, their GPS numbers, is that our numbers all along have been 3,000 to 4,000 trucks per day. Okay, and whatever way they spin the revenue,
up 95.
Yeah, coming through. That's the general rule. At those numbers, at that 3,000, this plan does not work. And we've said from day one, 3 years later, with their numbers coming out, as Mike did the math, you take the 30 days into the number of the revenue they got, you divide that by the average toll, you split that in 4, you've got 1,585 south, 1,585 north. That's amounts to what we said all along. So regardless of the math, we're still at 3,000, and this plan doesn't work at 3,000 trucks.
Oh. Right, and even if it works at the numbers the DOT suggests it does, it only takes care of 10% of the whole roadworks program,
right.
Which is why I cannot believe we're embroiled in this controversy. This is just the worst thing I've ever seen in terms of value for crisis.
Yes.
You know, it's not like it's the end of the world. It's called a budget adjustment.
Yeah.
It's just, so, I mean.
It didn't have to happen this way.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we'll talk about how the litigation could pan out, what happens here, and the timetable, which is really kind of interesting. Stay with us. So the trucking associations and the litigation against the state is in a very preliminary state right now. Projections are that it'll be May of next year before this case really gets into the pipeline.
I heard John Lynch on with you last week.
John Lynch from the American Trucking Association.
John mentioned May. I don't know. I don't want to say May. I think that right now we're subject to Chief Judge Smith's calendar, and the first opening I believe we may see for a conversation, a conference about any actions that may take place. Will be perhaps as soon as August. Now, how it fleshes out into May.
Too many cases.
But meanwhile, we're in the meantime, we're $5,600,000 a month from our industry. So this really should move along rather quickly in our estimation, because we believe we're being illegally tolled.
At some point, you guys were trying to figure out what the timing was best for you.
Yep.
First, you said you were going to sue on the first sign of the gantries, and then you said, you know what, we'll wait. The Vermont administration feels like they called your bluff a little bit, that you actually went ahead and sued after gantry number 2 was up.
Yeah.
But now they've got to make a decision, because if the case is not going to become, fluid until May, and gosh knows what the resulting timeline is as the case is tried, they are doing hearings right now to put the rest of the gantries up.
Correct.
The environmental process.
This
are
Friday.
they going to pull the trigger on that? Not before Election Day. I promise you that.
I agree with
you.
You
ain't going to see no more tolls up before Election Day.
You remember our hearings the last time were in December, and we dragged our feet. Now they did until June. So I think that they probably are into some requirement to get the hearings going. But that these hearings are going to be simultaneously held. 3 different hearings, 3 different locations, same time.
This week.
6 p.m. Friday night. I don't know what you're doing, but I'll be hanging out, running between hearings on Friday night at 6 p.m. in the middle of summer. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's the game that's being played.
I guess they fear something. But this, as I believe the folks from Federal Highway told me, that this next round perhaps may be a little more challenging as we get toward more congested areas, and there's different things in here. We don't, quite frankly, I'm not taking these hearings as a great opportunity for us to block anything. I hope Federal Highway looks at the evidence we're going to put forward, but based on the turnaround time of about 5 days last time when we put forth very compelling reasons why they should slow this up, I don't put much faith in the environmental assessment process.
I want to just remind everybody, the truckers provided an alternative finance methodology, which is not just we don't want to pay any money.
Right, which is no longer on the table.
It's not on the table anymore. So,
and we will fight any attempts for them to, just like this, we will fight any attempts for them to take our offer should they not prevail in this lawsuit. In other words, if they fail in this lawsuit and tolls do revert back and there is no tolling program, should they come back and say, "Now we'll take your 19 cents and your fees and all that stuff," that offer is not on the table anymore.
Understood.
Yeah, I mean,
negotiation.
At this point.
But at this, I get you. But I just wish that everybody was paying attention to this, because I still see the day.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, I'm not a soothsayer legally. I did stay at Holly and Express last night. I think you guys have a good argument on discrimination. If you win this lawsuit and we only have 2 tolls up, they'll take them down. We have 17 tolls up. They're not going to take them down.
Right.
The governor told me she would take them down, but they're not going to take them down. They're going to turn to everybody driving a pedestrian vehicle in this state, and that is what has been on the wink, don't worry about it agenda the entire way.
And as I alluded to before, I think the messaging you're seeing is them conditioning. They didn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on roadworks promotion post-activation. They're spending all this time and effort, to me, to condition the public to believe that their program is a good, solvent program, and whether it's with trucks or the people have to pay a little bit of pain to get the big pain trucks are feeling, tolling is not a bad thing for you. And I think their messaging may be conditioning the public for that sell at some point. That's a possibility.
I think the public will stand on its head and scream bloody murder.
I would hope pitchforks and lanterns at the State House if they renege on that.
But they'll all be surprised, and that's. Well, I mean, everyone will be. Right. I know. I can hear it now. I didn't know this. I thought it was just the trucks, and it's like I can't warn you enough.
But there are other issues as well. If that cap goes away, say the cap. Say they can toll trucks.
The cap of $40.
The cap goes away.
For
now they've reneged on an airtight protection, albeit it's legal, to the business community. Guys, the locals are going to spend no more than $40 a day. If that goes away, that's a problem with the business community. If they start bringing in smaller trucks below Class 8, that's a provision that they guaranteed. So there are a number of areas, Dan, where this thing could fall flat on its face, and not just a wholesale across the board victory by us, but certainly if we start picking away some of the protections that they said were airtight, they're in big trouble. But I think it's going to go to cars. We will see.
One step at a time. By the way, enjoy your Friday night.
I will. Looking forward to it. Always
I may not
enjoy
make those Friday nights at 6 p.m.
No,
here.
no. Imagine that, huh?
Thanks for the update.
Thank you, sir.
Final word when we come back. So tomorrow night, Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee will step in as we continue to check around the primary season. It's going to heat up as August generally heats up, so stay tuned for that, and we'll continue to try to keep our eyes and ears both on the television side here and on the radio on WPRO weekdays 3 to 6 on the nurses' strike. There's got to be a better solution than this. No good. NG. Not good. Good night.